What's up, guys, and welcome to the weekly Q&A. I'm going to do another bigger episode this week. I'm going to do 25 questions again instead of my normal 10 because I'm still getting just a massive influx of the Last Jedi related questions. So expect spoilers for the Last Jedi in this video if you haven't seen it. Now, before we get started, I need to give a shout out to Sebastian Danese, who joined Patreon at the Jedi Master level. Thank you so much, Sebastian. That is huge for us. Also, last week I answered 2 questions that now have official answers. The first was, who said I have a bad feeling about this in The Last Jedi? Rian Johnson confirmed it was BB-8. I really liked that. It was kind of a creative way to get it in there. The second question was, where is Snap Wexley? Is he dead? He is not. The Visual Dictionary confirms that he and a lot of the other pilots and just characters we didn't see in The Last Jedi that were in The Force Awakens were sent off on other missions, probably trying to gather those allies in the Outer Rim or something. But all that said, let's move on to new questions. I'm going to start by answering 2 that kinda go together. The first is from Joshua, who says, have you seen the movie a second time? Did it change any of your opinions? I believe it was miles better because I wasn't looking for what I wanted, but what was actually there. And then I'm going to go into Ryan O'Rourke's question, who asks, have you found a solid place for The Last Jedi in your ranking? How do you think it stacks up against The Force Awakens? So, to start with Joshua, yes, I did see it a second time this past Monday. I agree with you, I liked it a lot more. And yeah, I think it's because I didn't have any of these expectations. I didn't have my Legends preconceptions. I didn't have my own thoughts on how things would go. A lot of the things that bothered me the first time around didn't bother me at all the second time, like the humor. And honestly, the more I think about the film and the implications, the meanings behind things, the more I'm appreciating it. That said, for my ranking, I still haven't found a solid place for it, but I think it's probably in the bottom half of my Star Wars films. I still liked it, but it just... I think first impressions still mean a lot to me. When I walked out of The Force Awakens, I was so energized. That movie hit all of the right notes for me. I will always remember Finn and Poe's scene together when they're flying around in the TIE Fighter and they're becoming best friends. Like, that moment to me was when I was like, they did it. Like, I'm on board. And it happened so early in the film. I think The Last Jedi had one of those moments, and it's the fight in Snoke's throne room. Really all of the throne room. But I just remember sitting there like, oh my gosh. Like, I thought that was so cool. But it happens like an hour and a half into the movie, maybe more. So by that point, I was like kind of anxious about how the movie was going overall. And my anxiety was lessened by the second viewing. Like I said, I'm liking it more and more, but that first impression, I think I'm always going to kind of remember that. And so yeah, I would actually rank The Force Awakens higher than The Last Jedi. I feel like I'm in the minority when I say that I like The Force Awakens more than Rogue One. So I don't have a solid place in my ranking yet, but yeah, it's not in my top 3. It might not even be in my top 5. I'm not really sure right now. Kind of keeping with the same theme here, Adam Thomas asks, what's the deal with people hating on The Last Jedi? There were elements I didn't particularly like, but the movie as a whole was a fun, wild ride, and I really look forward to a second viewing so I can take the film as it is rather than as I expected it to be. Yeah, like I just said, like Joshua said, I do think a second viewing helps a lot. I don't know that that's a great thing about a movie. Like, normally if I see a movie and I don't like it, going in a second time isn't going to fix things, but I think Star Wars is a special case because we had so many expectations. I mean, everyone had, not everyone, but like major Star Wars fans had 20 years worth of Luke Legends stories that we had built up in our mind. We all thought we knew how Luke would be presented, and it was very different. And again, the more I think about it, the more I'm like, that's a really interesting way to present it. It's a challenging way to present it, but I don't think it's wrong. I don't think they destroyed Luke's character. I like the way that things ended for him, but it's a challenging movie, and people have all these expectations from Legends. They've had 2 years to theorize about things that Rian Johnson wasn't considering when he wrote the script. Bob Iger said that he read the script for The Last Jedi like right after The Force Awakens came out. Rian Johnson's script was done before people started to latch on to Snoke theories and who Rey's parents were. And yeah, I'm sure he knew that there were these mysteries here, but then he sat down and he thought up all of the different possibilities. He said that he wrote like down that she could be a Palpatine, she could be a Kenobi, she could be a Skywalker or a Solo, and to him, the most interesting and challenging thing for Rey was that she is a nobody. And I do like that. I like the way that they handled Snoke and Rey's parents. I cheered when Snoke died. Because I never really bought into any of the Snoke theories. I never really talked about Snoke because he's just not that important. But yeah, The Force Awakens set him up as this mysterious character and people latched onto that. And I think people were frustrated that their mysteries that they had built up in their mind just weren't addressed in the way they wanted. So, I don't know. I don't think that the movie deserves this intense hatred. I'm always going to be angry when I see Star Wars fans sending death threats. Like, it's a movie. So, everyone needs to calm down if they're doing something like that. But I understand people not liking the film. I totally get that. And that's completely allowed. You're allowed to have whatever reaction you want to this movie. But some of the vitriol has been like rough to take in. So those of you that are engaging in civil discussion, like, good for you. Keep that up. Don't let anyone tell you you have to like the movie or you have to dislike the movie. You like what you want. But that's kind of where I think the hate for the movie is coming from, is just all of those built up expectations that we had from before. Sticking with this theme just a little longer, Jason Smith asks, do you think because of the overwhelming hatred that this film is getting all over the internet right now, that JJ and company will backpedal and go for a more safe film? First of all, the overwhelming hatred, it is a loud hatred. The people that are really angry, they're always the loudest. But I don't think that the majority of Star Wars fans hated this movie. I think a lot of people were a little taken aback by it, and they were like, okay, I need to process this and just wrap my head around what I just saw. I mean, that's how I felt, but I didn't walk out of that like angry and mad at the world and all of this stuff. So I don't think that most Star Wars fans, I don't think the overwhelming majority of people that saw the movie hated it. I think that there's just a very vocal minority. That's pretty much how I think the internet goes in general. Do I think that JJ and Lucasfilm are going to backpedal and go a more safe route? No, not really. I don't think that they're going to base what they do off of the vocal minority. Just because they're being vocal about it doesn't mean that they are right. I don't think that The Last Jedi ruined childhoods. I think it was a solid movie. Honestly, despite my feelings about it and how I do think it's in like my bottom half, it's not my favorite Star Wars movie, I think in the long run that this movie is going to be great for Star Wars. I think now people are going to go into Episode 9 maybe with all of their expectations out the door. Like, they're not going to hold on to some of these things that they find so dear, especially when it's just their own speculation. I think maybe people are going to chill out a little bit and go into Episode 9 and future Star Wars films with a more open mind. Alright, now we're going to get to some in-universe questions. David Kent asks, what do you think that symbol on the floor that has water on it on Ahch-To is? That's supposed to be an image of the Prime Jedi. It's something that the people that made the first Jedi Temple put down on the ground. Is just like a symbol. It's got light and dark, kind of a yin-yang feel to it, but that's what it's meant to represent. Sticking with that a little bit, Andrew Kyle asks, do you think that it's possible that Snoke is the Prime Jedi in the mural? Personally, he thinks there's some resemblance between Snoke and the mural. No, I don't think that's Snoke. I think that it was just kind of a basic human figure. I know some people have already just latched onto that. It's fine that some people think that Snoke is still alive. Like, you theorize away, but I think that Snoke is dead and gone. I think that's what makes the most sense for Kylo Ren's arc. I think that's what the story was telling us, is that he defeated Snoke. If Snoke comes back, it's this whole other thing where it kind of messes with the arc that The Last Jedi set up. Is it possible? Yes. Darth Maul got cut in half. If he can come back, so can Snoke. But I don't think that was Rian Johnson's intent. I think Snoke is dead. And I never was one to look for all of these little connections for Snoke and like hints about Snoke. I just never bought into his importance like some other people have seemed to. And yeah, I've already seen people saying that Snoke is that prime Jedi and like this and that and the other. And I'm just like, did you learn nothing? Tom Ackerman wants to know what I think is going on with the connection between Kylo and Rey at the end of the movie when Rey enters the Falcon, because it's not Snoke who's connecting them anymore. I do have a theory on this, because we don't have an official answer. My best guess is that Kylo reached out to Rey. So he said earlier that Rey couldn't be doing that, the effort alone would kill her. I kind of think that part of that was because they were across the galaxy from each other. And like, it killed Luke because he is projecting his image across the galaxy and to hundreds, maybe thousands of people, however many people the First Order had on the ground, and all of the Resistance and Kylo, and that effort killed Luke. Now, Snoke is gone, Luke's gone. I think Kylo reached out to Rey mentally, and it just wasn't as big of a deal because he projected himself, or connected his mind with one other person who was like half a mile away. It's not like it was across the galaxy. So, in my mind, it was just Kylo doing that, and it had nothing to do with Snoke or Luke or anything like that. Your Name asks, now that Snoke is dead, do you think it's still likely he was the dark side presence Palpatine felt calling him from the unknown regions? I mean, it's kind of up in the air right now. I do think that that was the intent of Chuck Wendig when he wrote that into the Aftermath trilogy. I think that, yeah, Snoke was probably that dark presence that Palpatine heard calling, and that's why he was exploring the unknown regions. I do think it was related to Snoke. I think that makes perfect sense. Whether or not that turns out to be true, who knows? I'm sure that we're going to get a book or something about Snoke. I don't think Lucasfilm is just going to drop the whole character now that he's dead. I think that they know that we want to know, and so they're going to give us a book or something. Hopefully, like, I'd love to see James Luceno write it, because he did such a great job with the Darth Plagueis book. I feel like this is kind of along the same lines, so I would love to see him write it. Hibia Mori asks if I can accept that they were leading us up to Rey's parents being literal nobodies that sold her off to Unkar Plutt, or would I rather her have come from a dynastic Force lineage? I am totally on board with her being a nobody, with her parents being some drunks that sold her for drinking money, as Kylo put it. Every time that I would consider the different possibilities, like, okay, is she a Palpatine? I thought that was way too far-fetched. Is she a Skywalker or a Solo? If it were anyone like that that we knew, if they left her with Unkar Plutt, like, that's just a terrible choice. And I was like, there's no way that they would do that. So, to me, her being a nobody is the more powerful message. Like, I don't think that it's great to be shown that the only way to achieve power is to be born into it. I like that Rey could be a nobody and still be strong in the Force. And now we have kind of the similar thing with the Broom Boy at the end of the movie. He has Force powers. He's a nobody, but they can still change the galaxy. And I think that's a better message than you can only change the galaxy if you're a Skywalker. Dason Flores asks, why didn't the Resistance send everything they had to Starkiller Base, basically meaning the bombing squadrons? Out of universe, of course, the answer is that they didn't know that they had a bombing squadron at that time. So they did kind of create a reason for them to not be there in the visual dictionary, and that was that they were sent off on another mission. They were on a mercy mission. I haven't read the Cobalt Squadron book yet, but I think it is about the mission they were on and why they weren't at the Battle of Starkiller Base. Matt Clare asks, do you think Luke's use of the Force to be on Crate was him projecting his visual and mostly physical self to be seen and touched by all those people, or projecting himself into the minds of those people? I think it was more kind of what Kylo and Rey had. It was a mental link. I don't think his physical self was there at all. Rian Johnson has said that when he touched Leia, when he handed her the dice, that was when she realized, oh, Luke's not really here, because she didn't feel him. When he kissed her on the head, he didn't really. It was just a visual. You can see that he doesn't leave footprints on Crate. So I think it was more that he was projecting his image into the minds of all these people. Zach Burkett asks, do we know anything about those shadowy, hooded guys with the glowing eyes who were hanging around in Snoke's throne room? They kind of reminded him of the Emperor's dignitaries from Return of the Jedi. You are correct. Like the Praetorian Guard were modeled after the Imperial Royal Guards, these new purple-robed aliens were kind of modeled after the Emperor's advisors. The visual dictionary tells us that they were aliens from the unknown regions who set up hyperspace lanes out there, and they were kind of secret to only them. It also says that they were partially responsible for the survival of the Imperial remnant that went out into the unknown regions. I don't know if they kind of like came out and picked them up and helped them out. Maybe they brought them to Snoke, or if the Empire was just somehow able to use the hyperspace routes they set up. I don't know, but that's pretty much everything we currently know about him. It's in the visual dictionary if you want to read it for yourself. John Wayne asks, in the inevitable flood of stories that are sure to come highlighting Luke in the 30 years between films, what would you rather see? Luke the Explorer traveling with Lor San Tekka to discover the secrets of the Jedi, or Master Luke during his time training new Jedi and Ben? Little from column A, little from column B. I mean, what I think would be cool is if we got a series. Like, I kind of miss the way Legends handled some books. We had the X-Wing series, and we would get occasional trilogies, and we had the New Jedi Order. Like, they had all of these book series that were telling one ongoing story. I would love to see something like that. Let's just get a Luke Skywalker series where it takes him from Return of the Jedi to The Last Jedi. And it starts with him exploring the galaxy with Lor San Tekka. Maybe it intersects a little with Battlefront 2 and his time on Pilio. We can see him gathering all these relics, and eventually he starts his new academy. He brings in Ben. We can see the fall of Ben and how Snoke kind of invaded his mind or influenced him, and that could tie in with that Snoke book from James Luceno or something. I would just love to see a big, long series like we used to get in Legends. That's something that I miss. John Wayne again asks, do you think we'll see Kylo redeemed at the end of this trilogy, or has The Last Jedi snuffed any hope of that? I wouldn't say that it has snuffed any hope, because everyone thought that Darth Vader was gone, that he was irredeemable, and so basically the point of the original trilogy is that no one is truly gone forever. It is possible, I think, that Kylo Ren could become Ben Solo once more. I don't think it's going to happen. I think that he made his choice in The Last Jedi. Leia even said herself, like, she knows that he's gone. I think that that's probably something like we saw with Anakin becoming Darth Vader. Ahsoka said she reached out to try to feel Anakin, and she couldn't, because Darth Vader and Anakin are two different people. So maybe I'm reading too much into this, but I get the impression that Kylo Ren is no longer Ben Solo. I think maybe he did finally destroy Ben Solo as he claimed to have done in The Force Awakens, and I think he's probably going to stay that way. Like I said, there's still hope that he could come back, but I think that since we already saw a redemption story for Darth Vader, and they know that people will be like, oh, this is just a rehash of Jedi, I think that he's probably going to stay on the side of evil. Luca Guglielmi asks, how come Luke didn't reach out to his father for advice when he sensed the dark side rising in Ben? Well, we don't know that he didn't. He may have spoken to Anakin's Force Ghost at some point, but I don't really think that it works like that. I don't think the Force Ghosts can just come out whenever they want. I mean, I think they can. They do have that power, but from a certain point of view, kind of got into Qui-Gon and how he felt as a being that was one with the Force. And it seemed like he kind of didn't want to come when Obi-Wan was calling. Like, he would come in desperate times of need, but it wasn't something that he necessarily wanted to do. It even seemed like an emotionally painful experience for him to separate himself even slightly from the Force. So, obviously, that would have been a dire time in need that Luke could have reached out to Anakin, but I mean, I think the answer comes down to, we don't know exactly how the Force works. We don't know exactly how Force Ghosts work. So there has to be some story reason that we just don't know about right now. Nikolai Nyrup says, in The Last Jedi, Yoda used the Force to burn down the tree on Ahch-To. Does that mean all Force Ghosts can use the Force? I would assume so. Again, we just don't know exactly how being one with the Force works, but based off of what Yoda did, I would say that yes, they can still use the Force to affect the living world. Jacob De Leon asks, with the events in The Last Jedi and yet still no peace in the galaxy, do you think the prophecy of the Chosen One has been debunked? There are no Sith and no Jedi now, and no signs of balance since before the prequels. No, I don't think that the prophecy was debunked. Part of the prophecy was that Darth Vader, or the Chosen One, would bring about the end of the Sith. And Darth Vader did that. There are no more Sith. Snoke wasn't Sith. Kylo Ren is not Sith. So, to that end, yes, Darth Vader was successful. The Chosen One prophecy was fulfilled. And George Lucas has said that, in his mind, Anakin did fulfill the prophecy. So, I think he brought about a balance to the Force for a time, but I guess it doesn't mean forever. Albert Boyson asks, what do you think about Mark Hamill being very unsatisfied with the way Rian Johnson chose to take Luke? Do you think he would have been a better character as the optimistic farm boy or as the pessimistic hermit he was in The Last Jedi? I'm sure that people are going to yell at me for defending a film that they feel shouldn't be defended, but yeah, I like Luke's representation. I mean, I understand Mark's concerns and why he might not be crazy about it, because he has his own preconceptions about what Luke should be. But his word is not the end-all be-all, and like I said, I think in the long run, The Last Jedi is going to be a very good thing for Star Wars. It shook things up. It rattled us as fans. It's caused so much conversation, and I really like the way that Luke ended. And I think that Rian Johnson kind of had to sit down. I mean, he said this, that when he was working out the story, he's like, well, Luke has to have a reason that he's on Ahch-To. There has to be a reason that he has taken himself out of this fight. I don't think it makes a whole lot of sense for him to just be sitting on Ahch-To waiting to be a hero again. I do think it makes sense that if he's been gone, then he has to have a reason. He has to think that the galaxy is better off without him and better off without the Jedi. So I think Rian took what The Force Awakens gave him, and he found what he thought was the most interesting. And is it challenging? Yes, it is. Is it a lot to wrap your head around? Absolutely. But I don't know. I don't think he was wrong. Will Nelson asks, are you relieved that The Last Jedi did not go into Bindu or Gray Jedi Territory? Yeah, it's a solid question, because I was championing that pretty hard, saying that, oh, maybe Luke is going to make a new Jedi Order, and that seems to be completely debunked. I mean, he did touch on things that I think were related to a more balanced approach, but he straight up said, like, I will not be the last Jedi, and then it cuts to Rey, and it's clear that the Jedi are going to continue through Rey. Now, is she going to follow the exact principles of, like, the Clone Wars Jedi? No, I don't think so. I agree when Luke says that they were hypocrites, and they were full of hubris, and that they let Darth Sidious rise to power. I agree with that. Yoda said as much in Star Wars Rebels, so I do think in that sense he kind of touched on it went back to a more spiritual approach, whereas it's been said that the Clone Wars era Jedi had kind of fallen away from the original practices of the Jedi. So I think what Luke started and what Rey will continue is that more spiritual approach, and to me that is enough. That's enough of a change. Jason Smith says, by the end of Return of the Jedi, we knew almost nothing about the Emperor and people were fine, but now the same thing happens with Snoke and they're mad. Do you think people just expect too much these days? I mean, it's just fun to speculate. I enjoy speculating. I mean, I did it for every trailer breakdown. I did it after books came out. Like, what does this tell us about The Last Jedi? What do the Journey to the Force Awakens books tell us about The Last Jedi? I did tons of speculating. I was wrong on almost everything, and that didn't bother me. What mostly bothered me in the movie was how Luke was handled, and yeah, it's a lot to take in, and like I said, the more I think about that, the more I'm cool with it. I also was just surprised that they killed him. I was not emotionally prepared for that. Not killed him, he became one with the Force, but yeah, I do think to a degree some people make all these theories and they build things up in their own minds and they think this is the most important thing ever. I mean, there's plenty of people that talk about Snoke day in and day out, and he just wasn't important, but they had built him up in their own minds. They overhyped him, in my opinion, and I don't think that that is The Force Awakens' fault. They put a little mystery around the character, but people just got so attached to their own expectations that they were furious when they weren't met. And I know that there are other complaints about the movie. I'm not saying that that's the only thing people are upset about. I'm not saying that at all. But when you are asking about Snoke specifically, yeah, I do think that people just got too attached. And honestly, things are different now. Like, making movies and telling stories are different in 2017 than they were in 1983. I mean, we have the internet. We are able to discuss things with anyone at any time. I mean, something that's pretty cool about having this channel is I can hop on Twitter and start a conversation about Star Wars with anyone at any given time. That's really neat. But there is also this other side of things where people can say, like, oh, this is going to happen. Like, this is a great idea. And then they build, like, a collective film and story within their minds that's just not the story that's going to be told. So it's just a different world. And I mean, I don't know what the answer is to that. Like, how do you deal with this internet centric speculation and theory world? I don't know, but I think it in part comes down to us not holding on to the theories and expectations we have. We just have to experience the story as the storytellers want to tell it. So, I don't know. There's no easy answer to that, but I completely agree that things are just different now than they were. Jimmy Champagne asks, why do you think Admiral Ackbar was killed off the way he was? It felt weird to him that such a well-known character would exit the franchise essentially off-screen. I think this just comes down to a divide between hardcore Star Wars fans, which if you're watching this video, you probably are, and the normal moviegoer. Hardcore fans, I mean, I think we have things skewed in our own minds that everyone treats everything the same way that we do. Admiral Ackbar is not that big of a deal to most of the people in the theater. They probably go, oh, it's that guy from Return of the Jedi, neat. But then they're like, he died. And most people are like, okay. But to us, we're like, hold on, Admiral Ackbar just died? He's dead and gone? We're never going to see him again? Like, it is a big deal to us, but to then, like, I don't know, stop and have a funeral for him, or like grind the film to a halt to appease the 5 or 10% of the diehards in there. I don't think that makes sense. I do wish that he had a more heroic death. I think that would have been nice for the fans. It would have been cool if he took Holdo's place doing the hyperspace ram or whatever. But I mean, it's just that things that are important to us aren't necessarily important to everyone. And I guess I can accept that. Yeah, sure. I wish that Admiral Akbar got an on-screen more significant death, but it's not the end of the world to me. Roy Beasley asks if I can explain my interpretation of Rey in the Darkside Cave. Not really. I honestly have no idea what was happening in there. I need to sit down and just really try to figure it out. I think part of it was that, yeah, she was looking for answers about her parents and she saw only herself. I guess that's kind of saying that your parents don't matter, you matter. And then the whole mirror thing where, like, she was snapping, but the reflections behind her were snapping first. I don't know, it kind of felt like this predetermined destiny kind of thing. Like, the Force knew she was going to snap before she did it. But I don't know if that's important or even right. I think I need, like, Rian Johnson to just come out and tell me what it means, because I don't have the literary prowess to figure all of this out. But it was an interesting scene because it didn't have that same ominous feel that Luke had on Dagobah, where he had to face Darth Vader and struck him down and realized, like, he has the potential to become Darth Vader, and he, like, really learns that lesson in Return of the Jedi. So maybe the Darkside Mirror Cave is going to pay off in Episode 9, but right now I honestly just don't have a solid answer. Luke Casey asks, how did Rey know how to swim? I mean, that's a pretty decent question considering she probably never saw that much water before in her life. But I think it's just one of those movie things you have to accept, is they wanted her to fall into the water. I do think that has some symbolic meaning. It's kind of like a rebirth thing. It's interesting that she fell in, and when she reemerged, like, her hair is different. That was an experience that changed her, and I think that was what they were trying to convey. And probably someone in the room was like, how does she know how to swim? And they were like, I mean, is that really important to the story we're trying to tell? But it is a funny observation. Matthew Simon wants me to talk about the parallel of the Loth Wolves from Lothal and the Volptices on Crate leading the heroes to safety. I do think that was a very interesting parallel. It's something that I noticed and made a note of. I don't think it means exactly the same thing. I don't think that the Volptices are connected to the Force the way that the Loth Wolves are. But I do think that it was kind of the will of the Force, so to speak. That one fox was kind of waiting for them to be like, follow me, let's go this way. Like, I'll lead you to safety. I don't think it was the fox consciously doing that so much as the Force maybe making it work out that way. I mean, I don't know. That might not be how the Force works, but that's how I interpreted it. It was the wolves, I feel like it was more of a conscious decision on their part, and I didn't get that from the foxes, if that makes any sense at all. And the last question of the day comes from Jake Showman, who asks, was the thing Luke was milking a moof, as in moof milker that Han mentioned in The Force Awakens? No, the visual dictionary tells us that creature was called a Thala Siren, but I do think it would have been funny if it were a moof. That's all the time I have for questions today. If you want to leave a question for next week's video, just put it in the comments below, or sign up for Patreon to join our weekly Q&A discussion. By the way, if you're a patron and you didn't see your question answered here, I will be answering them all in due time. It took me almost a week to get through last week's answers, and I'm going to try to get through them faster this time around, but I just got so many answers that it's going to take a while. I don't even know if I'm going to go back to 10 questions next week, or if I get a ton of new and unique questions again, I might keep doing 25 about The Last Jedi. We'll just have to see. But I want you to know that I will be answering all of those questions as fast as I can. If you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and consider checking out my Patreon page. As always, thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.